Welcome to Still Kicking with Billy Hauer. We are back, and it is Monday, April 24th, 2017. Welcome to another day of resisting global fascism, technological totalitarianism, and exposing the lies of our elites. Now, I know one world government, total surveillance, and one-party global fascism are the goals of Satan and our elites. And I say that as a Christian. I don't know that that's Satan's goal. I just have a feeling it is. And I know it's inevitable, but I also know that it is temporary. And I say that because I do believe that Christ is going to come back and rule the whole world from a new Jerusalem. And that's the kind of globalization I could probably get behind, because Christ was all about love and honesty and truth. And that would be very nice. And I guess that's what's going to happen. But first we're going to have to deal with the Antichrist and all these globalists. But it is the biggest power grab in history, and it will continue to destroy the middle class of Western nations, including France and England, and subjugate workers under today's economic global elites, who make the 18th century French aristocrats look like humanitarians. But before we get going, I just want to say that I'm really having a great time at Fonte's Coffee down on Grinstead Drive. I'm playing there, I'm singing, I play my guitar and sing, and I do a lot of classic rock and a little bit of classic country and some show tunes and whatnot. And it's a great little place, it's really nice, it's right across from Cherokee Park. They've got wine, they've got beer, and I'm there every Friday and Saturday from 7 to 10, and playing for Leo Fonte is a real treat, and his wife Mary. They're very nice people, and you know, in the music business, you don't always get nice people for a boss, and they're just real nice, and they really appreciate the effort I make on their behalf, and we have a lot of fun. I think the audience is having a lot of fun because they request songs all night long. I don't have to pick a single song from my playlist, and it's just a lot of fun. So come on down if you're in the Louisville, Kentucky area. We'd love to have you. Our top story today is going to be the French vote and its calming global markets. The economic elite and the markets are very happy. Sharia law and action in Chechnya. We're going to talk about those two things. And then in the fascist spotlight, another authoritarian airline caught abusing passengers. And we're going to give you a little update on Charlestown, Indiana, where a developer and the city council have partnership to drive out the poor of a neighborhood called Pleasant Ridge. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then in the Luddite Lounge, my favorite segment, Science Plays the Victim. And they march for more robust taxpayer funding. Evidently, the scientists feel besieged. Also, we're going to discuss algorithm ripoffs, how e-commerce rips you off. And also, artificial sweeteners are linked to strokes and dementia. And at the very end, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and desire. So what could that be? Well, our top story is the nationalist Marine Le Pen will be facing off with the globalist Emmanuel Macron. I'm not sure that's how they've been saying it on the radio. It's good to do a French story because I can trot out my French, which I've never had, but I love to pretend like I speak French. Anyway, they had their first election. Now they're going to do a runoff. Evidently, there were dozens of candidates. And these two people won. The globalist, Emmanuel Macron, is going to face off with Marie Pen in the runoff election, which is May 7th, which will be a little bit after our next show. And the projections that were in the paper were based on a partial vote, I think 86%. And Macron got 23.4%, and Le Pen got 22.4%. So he only is 1 percentage point ahead. And of course, what all matters is how the people who lost are going to vote. So what they have done, both of these people, they broke the conservative socialist duopoly in France. which is much like our Democratic-Republican duopoly. And in a way, Trump broke our duopoly because he took over the Republican Party and turned it from the party of the country club set to the party of the workers. I mean, who would have guessed that? But he did. Well, we hope he did. Maybe he's really for the country club set. I mean, after all, he owns a few country clubs, right? But anyway, it's hard to say what's going on now. But this election in France in May is going to be the globalist versus the nationalist. And Macron was a banker at the Rothschild Bank, and they're a very global institution. In fact, the Rothschilds have been global lenders for hundreds of years. And he wants to bring more European integration with France. He wants France to lose more sovereignty, and he wants to open the borders. He's like Clinton, basically. And Clinton represented the bankers, and Macron is a banker. So we'll see. Here's their picture. Look at this. You can see. Can you see this? There they are. This is the Wall Street Journal. I read the Wall Street Journal because it is one of the main Bibles of global fascism. And the real main Bible of global fascism, of course, is the Economist magazine. But here's the oops, I'm doing everything backwards. I cannot figure this computer out. All right, here we are. There's Macron, the banker, and there's Le Pen. And it looks like they're both giving the Hitler salute. Not really, but you can say that. We'll have fun. Oh, look, the Hitler salute in France. But anyway, I think Le Pen, right here I think she has kind of a more personality in her face, and this Macron guy looks like an empty suit to me. But I don't know. The problem is, they say nobody in France knows what he really stands for. But anyway, his party is called En Marche, or En Marche, which means on the move. But who knows what he stands for? He does stand for globalization, we know that. And oh boy. So that's that main story. Also, Sharia law in action. In Chechnya, which was that breakaway province of Russia, which has a really nasty, nasty man leading it, who's a Putin guy. It plays in, Putin has done this big anti-gay campaign, and he made it illegal in Russia to promote the homosexual lifestyle. So that makes talk about it. And now in Chechnya, one of the provinces of Russia, I guess, I don't know what its status is politically, but they are torturing and murdering gays. And quite a few have been tortured and murdered. 3 deaths, we think. Chechnya doesn't have a lot of reporters in it, so they kill reporters there, so it's hard to say for sure what's really going on. But they are kidnapping these gay men, and they are torturing them and then murdering them. And they think we're perverted. They think there's something wrong with us, and this is what they're doing. They think that this is what's moral. Torture and snuff is moral. That's not sick. That's not perverted. Well, it's an honor killing. And of course, this is when the men get killed by the honor killers. And, it is a Muslim province, so if you like Sharia law, you'll be really happy. Go to Chechnya. You'll love it. All right, now it's time for the Fascist Spotlight. This is going to be a short show because we have a derby function tomorrow, and I didn't get as much time as I normally like to prepare the show, so I apologize to you now. I'm sorry. But we are going to do the show because it's important to do it, because nobody is out there really saying no to globalization except for people who are called the far right, like Marine Le Pen, or, they keep calling Trump a totalitarian and an authoritarian, but, he's obeying the courts. So I don't see any sign that he is ditching democracy the way the way our parties have ditched democracy. Anyway, in the Fascist Spotlight, where we like to shine the light on examples of American fascism. And fascism, what I'm talking about, is the classic Mussolini fascism. He invented it, and he said, I wished I called it corporatism, because it's just letting the corporation take over the state. And, of course, when the corporation takes over the state, they get to write the laws that they have to abide by. So it's a kind of a self-regulating system for the rich. It's just a rebranding of plutocracy. We used to just call it plutocracy when the rich ruled. Now we call it, well, then we called it fascism, and now we call it liberal economics. And that sounds a whole lot better than plutocracy and fascism. But anyway, in San Francisco, American Airlines Group abused a mother of two and makes her cry. And after she started crying, she said, "You can't use violence with babies." And what happened was that she was boarding the plane with two toddlers and a stroller. And evidently the policy at most airlines is to check the strollers in at the gate. So they have to leave them on the ramp that takes you to the plane, and then they check it into baggage. But evidently this attendant, the steward, grabbed the stroller from her and maybe accidentally hit the woman. And that's why she said you can't use violence against babies. Well, this is right by the cockpit, and a guy in first class, jumps up and confronts this man. And evidently there was a phone video of them arguing, this flight attendant and the first class passenger. And it was an ugly verbal fight. And what ended up happening was that this woman and her two children voluntarily left the plane and were rebooked on the next flight out to, she was headed to Fort Worth, Dallas, I think, and then on to South America. And they upgraded her first class. I think they should have given her the ticket for free. And the employee has been removed from duty, which I guess means he's getting a paid vacation. I'm not sure. It was a pretty short article. But authoritarianism is part of fascism. It's not, Hitler was much more authoritarian than, of course, than Mussolini was in Italy. And Hitler copied Mussolini. And Hitler grafted racism and anti-Semitism in particular onto fascism. But fascism is really a corporate economic order. But authoritarianism is always part of it. Corporations are not democratic institutions. You can only vote if you have voting shares. And most of the stockholders can't vote. And none of the employees can vote. They have to do what they are told. And when corporations know that the law is on their side, they can become a little authoritarian even with their customers, as American Airlines has done. And they deserve every bit of bad press they get, along with United Airlines, which, just drugged that poor doctor from Kentucky out and busted his teeth out, But this is what you can expect from fascism. Fascism does not respect labor. Ayn Rand was so immature. She thought that capital was everything and labor was nothing. But I remind you that Ford couldn't make a single car without labor. You can't even make a robot without labor. You have to have labor. All these great estates would look pretty crummy without people mowing their lawns and pruning their trees. So that's the first fascist spotlight story. The second one is Charlestown, Indiana. The uber-fascist mayor there, Bob Hall, is going after the homeowners now in the neighborhood of Pleasant Ridge. And if you haven't heard about this story, Charlestown, Indiana is just across the river from Louisville, and it's right on the other side of the new Easton Bridge. And there's an industrial park over there. Now they're calling this area an economic development area, and they're just they're in partnership with a local developer named John Nance, evidently, or Nice. I'm not sure what his name is. The Courier is doing a good job of protecting the developer. They reported his name once, and I don't even think they reported it correctly. And it's kind of foggy who this developer is. And I give him credit for doing the story, believe me. And then what they're doing is they're running these poor people out of their neighborhood. And most of them were renters. They're all gone. 150 properties have been sold. Now they're going after the owners of the houses. And none of these owners are particularly wealthy because this is not a wealthy neighborhood. So that's what's going on. There is a hero. His name is Jeff Rose. He's from the Institute for Justice in Washington, D.C., and he is helping the neighborhood association sue the Charlestown, Indiana government. And I hope they succeed because this is a dreadful precedent. And it makes us look like a bunch of Nazis, really. It does. I'm sorry. It goes beyond fascism, what they're doing in Charlestown, Indiana. And I'm ashamed to be their neighbor, but I love them. I love you guys. Straighten up and be humans. this is the thing about smart people. They're very smart, and they know how to manipulate, and they know how to dominate, and they know how to, make you vote against your own self-interest. And they take advantage of people with lesser gifts and IQ. And this is what they're doing in Charlestown, Indiana. And this is why fascism is so bad, because the fascists are already rich. They're already the smart people. They're the intellectually gifted. And then the government, which is supposed to regulate them and keep them from enslaving everybody else, is now them. And so we are not only seeing our wages go down and our middle class get destroyed, but we are also seeing our civil rights disappear. The Patriot Act wiped out the Bill of Rights. It virtually wiped it out. And it did it without amending the Constitution. There isn't a lawyer at the ACLU that has realized that you cannot change the Bill of Rights with ordinary law. That's because the ACLU doesn't care about civil rights. They care about abortion. They care about identity politics, but they don't care about civil rights. They don't care about the Fourth Amendment. I get their mailings, and they never mention the Fourth Amendment. And if they do, it's just one little line. The whole paragraphs for identity politics. So, they're smart people too. And smart people have really got it great now. They're doing very, very well since globalization. The middle class wiped out. And the poor, the middle class has been replaced by the working poor. And that's what we have now. So God bless the Institute for Justice and Jeff Rose. I hope that they can beat these Charlestown fascists at their own game. And finally, my favorite segment, the Luddite Lounge, where we try to take a more honest look at technology. And, there's lots of cheerleaders for technology out there, but not many people willing to take a more jaundiced view of it. Well, this Saturday, you've probably read about the March for Science. Evidently, there were 500 rallies, or 400, depending on who you believe, around the world, all protesting what they call, the worldwide attacks on free exchange of ideas. Now, I find that very, very ironic. Science is very well funded by the taxpayers, and of course, their goal is to have evidence-based legislation and robust government funding. That's what their two stated goals were. Now, basically what that means is they want to determine the law and collect more tax revenue for themselves. Now, they said there have been worldwide attacks on the free exchange of ideas. Well, I guess they're talking about the global warming skeptics, which we know Donald Trump is one. I am not a global warming skeptic. I tend to believe it's happening. I'm a gardener, and I see the changes. I see that I can plant my seeds earlier and earlier every year, and I see how warm the winters have been. And I've read some big articles back in the 70s, some of the first articles on global warming, and it's all kind of come to pass. In fact, what they predicted was really too conservative. But, I believe in dissent, and there are some scientists that are global warming skeptics. And it's ironic to me that they say there's an attack on a free exchange of ideas, but when these skeptics try to give their ideas, they are attacked by the majority of scientists, or the supposed majority of scientists who think that global warming is real. Well, I think that it is getting warmer. I don't know what's causing it. A big volcano can cause global warming, all kinds of things. A big carbon dioxide release from the earth. These things happen. I do know there's plenty of carbon. I do know that the air is polluted. I know that the water is polluted. And I also find that very ironic that they picked Earth Day for this march, because it is science and technology that has caused global warming. It is. Think about it. Thomas Edison built the first coal-fired electric plant in Manhattan, in New York. And the main contributor to global warming are coal-fired power plants and natural gas-fired power plants. They are, very, very polluting, and they put a lot of carbon in the atmosphere. Nuclear power plants are just toxic. Do you want to live near Fukushima? Do you want to live near 3 Mile Island? I don't. No, nobody wants to. But these things are really dangerous, and they may not put out carbon, but they're putting out much, much worse. They're putting out all kinds of horrible isotopes. But anyway, I'm no scientist, as you can tell. I'm an artist, and artists like to look at the big picture. And the big picture here is that technology is causing all of the pollution. The people who reject technology, like the Amish, you cannot blame them for global warming. Their wood stoves are not causing it. In fact, when forests burn, in a weird way, it creates oxygen. I read that in a science article. And I'm very much interested in science. I base my whole diet on what we've been able to find out through science. So I'm not anti-science. I trust science, but I don't trust it completely, because the physicists didn't think twice about poisoning all those people when they tested their atomic bombs, or when they refined their nuclear materials in some of these plants around the Ohio Valley. They didn't mind. They didn't think twice about disposing radioactive waste in an ordinary landfill. And they didn't think twice about messing with the human genome. They just don't think twice about it. There doesn't seem to be any conscience in science. They just do what they want. And I've read some bios of some of these Nobel Prize winners. They are squalid. These are squalid, greedy, dreadful people who are children of God, and I love them. But their behavior is abominable. And it is science that is destroying the planet. A lot of scientists actually stayed out of the march because they didn't want to further politicize science, which is interesting. And speaking of science, in Atlantic magazine, e-commerce is making it easier to rip off consumers. And this is the issue of Atlantic. This is the latest one. There's, the Trump impersonator. What's his name? And this is how online shopping makes suckers of us all. And there's nothing less transparent than the internet. I mean, when you go to Amazon to buy something, or Overstock.com, which has had to pay huge penalties for ripping off their customers, for charging them 4 times what Walmart charges and telling them it was 50% off. And when every time Amazon gets caught pricing things, for different people, they say, oh, it's just a pricing test. We're just doing an experiment. And I know about that. I was a marketing major. But what they've done, there's this thing called the demand curve in economics. And basically, it's at the price demand when people will walk away from something. So if you price it over this point, the demand curve crashes and nobody will buy it. Well, thanks to big data, now these wonks and algorithm writers are trying to figure out everybody's personal demand curve. That's how much they have on you. Demand curves used to be for us a market or a segment of a market. Now they want to do your personal demand curve. And it's the price calibrated precisely to the maximum that you are willing to pay. So they look at your web browsing history and all the data that they can collect, and they know that this is the most they can charge you before you will balk. So in this new e-commerce world, prices are never really set like they used to be from the 1860s on. And they're always fluctuating. And the vending machine that sells Coke charges more when the temperature goes up and less when the temperature goes down. And it's always to our disadvantage. And this is just another way the smart have turned us all into digital lemmings. So watch out for your e-commerce buy. Also in USA Today, speaking of science not giving a hoot about your health, there was a study published in the American Heart Association's journal called Stroke, that artificial sweeteners in sodas, that if you have one a day, if a daily diet of a soda, increases the risk of stroke by 3 times. And Purdue University did a study in 2013 that found that these artificial sweeteners don't help you lose weight. And of course, at the end of this article, it says the American Beverage Association says they can be tools for weight loss. Well, actually, they can't. But here's another fascist group, it's an industry group, just lying. And so we've exposed that lie. I guess they didn't read the Purdue study. Anyway, you know, it got me to thinking. My mother just died a little over a year ago today of Alzheimer's, and she drank Tab all the time. She was always drinking Diet Fresca or Diet Tab, and I'm wondering now, did that contribute to the onset of her Alzheimer's? I don't know. But you know, all of this technology is toxic. The chemical industry has created every Superfund site there is. You know, the oil industry, that's all science and technology and engineering, and we know what they've done to the oceans, what they did, what the BP spill did. There's a spill right now in the North Slope of Alaska, also by BP. They're really good at spilling, those people. But anyway, there you have it. Watch out for artificial sweeteners. And then before we go, there's this little letter that was in the Wall Street Journal. And the reason I read the Wall Street Journal, it is the Bible of global fascism, and it's a great way to keep abreast of what the fascists are up to. But this is an interesting letter from a guy named Frederick Butson in Chicago. And the headline on the letter is AI, which stands for artificial intelligence, isn't like the liberating industrial revolution of old. And I'll just read it to you. There is a difference between artificial intelligence and earlier industrial revolutions, when human beings were sitting at the controls commanding the machines. And this is about an article, Smart Machines Will Free Us All, that was in April 15th. He says, he disagrees obviously with this article. The AI revolution, the artificial intelligence revolution, is unlike the historical industrial revolution in that it reverses this relationship. It puts the machine at the controls to command the humans. When I entered the computer industry 35 years ago, my mentor was fond of saying that ultimately the only question about computers that matters is whether the machines will want pets. I scoffed at him then. I am not scoffing now, Frederick Butson. And I think that's very interesting. Will your computer want a pet? And perhaps you will be the pet. Because, you know, remember last week, or a couple weeks ago, we talked about Elon Musk. He said that artificial intelligence will subjugate us all if we don't implant his computer in our brains. And he's got a company to that. So, you know, this is all happening under your nose. The press is not going to cover this. They are just being cheerleaders because these people are advertising in their media. So you're not going to get the truth in very many places, but you will get it here because we look for it, we ferret it out. Thank you for watching Still Kicking with Billy Hauer. We'll be back Tuesday, May 2nd. That is, if I'm still kicking. Be free, live up, and remember, I love you.